What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about Fortnite's newest hotfix update, which just went live a few hours ago. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, comment down below what you think of these changes, and if you guys would like to use my code when getting anything from the item shop, it is EvolveJake, and it is underneath the webcam. The most significant change in this update is going to be that all of the medallions were removed in regular matches. They are still available in ranked mode and in tournaments, and then I believe Blitz has this season's medallions and like the pool of medallions you can get as well. But for core BR game modes, Battle Royale and Zero Build, there are no medallions on the island currently, which is a huge change because this season's movement medallions were very, very impactful to how fights played out and to how, you know, player rotation and how like early game played out. I feel like a lot of players were landing at these boss POIs or landing around these boss POIs, really trying to get the medallions. So having them removed, I think, is one of the most significant changes they could have made to the game this season. The queen bugs in the boss POIs will still spawn, and they will drop their mythic weapon, legendary slurp juice, as well as reward you with a lot of hero points, which is still a very high value thing. When this change initially happened, I'm sure a lot of people looked at this and was like, oh, just the boss POIs are pointless now. But still, being able to get a mythic weapon is, you know, pretty useful. And being able to get to A tier very quickly will help you get your A tier drop pod, which has guaranteed shockwaves in it. And then it'll also let you get into the weapon bunker, which gives you a chance of an exotic, or not a chance of exotic. You get an exotic, but you also have a lot of other loot in there, which is important because it's much harder to get mobility now because the shockwave launcher was vaulted. Shortly after this update, you could still get it from some of the pods, so that's why you may see it in this gameplay. But that was fully fixed, completely removing the item from Battle Royale. There still will be the exotic version of the shockwave launcher coming to the game in next week's update. Fortnite status did say that, but for now, there is no shockwave launcher at all. So mobility is not as, I wouldn't say it's not as easy to come by, but when the shockwave launcher was in the pool, once you got it, you had like a lot of shockwaves in a single slot because it went off rockets, and because most eliminations you get would give you rockets, it was easy to have mobility once you got a shockwave launcher. But with the shockwave launcher being vaulted and shockwaves and crash pads kind of being the main mobility items currently, you need to be more smart with your mobility and, you know, conserve it in some instances. But also, it makes the mobility you find that much more valuable. And that's why I was saying that I still, like, kind of have some priority on the boss to get that A tier drop as fast as I can for the guaranteed drops. But also, the bunkers, just having a lot of loot is decent chances of getting you mobility. So I still think these boss POIs will be pretty high value because you can quickly get to A tier, get that drop, get the bunkers, and kind of get your game going. Another change that's going to be happening with this kind of shakeup is that I think cars are going to be a lot better again. You still do have to worry about the Swarm Strike rocket launcher because that can just completely ruin your game if you're playing too aggressively with a car and you're just driving up to people with it, you know. But with there being less mobility to go around and with shockwaves being the main mobility item currently, I think cars are going to be a lot better for traveling the map, because, you know, you get from point A to point B without having to use mobility. When we had the shockwave launcher, if you had to use 2 or 3 shockwaves to travel, who really cares? You probably have 12 in your back pocket, and you're gonna get 12 more off in an elimination. But the shockwave launcher being gone, I think, affects the game almost as much as the medallions being gone. Both of these changes is a lot of reduction in the amount of mobility on the map, and that's going to make the game play out a bit slower, and I think that's going to make cars a lot more valuable. Getting to S+ will now require less points in both solos and duos mode than it did before. I didn't really notice this change too much while playing after the update. The drones and the gold POIs will now give 80 OXR points instead of just 15, so that's like a decent change because these gold drone POIs were already incredibly good. These drones give you a lot of loot this season, and it was kind of just overshined by the fact that like the medallions were so good, so a lot of people felt really motivated to go for them. But with medallions being gone, you know, you have much more freedom in terms of choosing where you want to land. And I think the POIs that are gold that will have the flying drones in that match are going to be very much worth going for if you want like a safer start to the game and also to get a lot of loot. The fact that you get more hero points for breaking them now is also going to be a nice little benefit to you, to help you kind of maybe offset the fact that you're not landing at as hot of a drop. Another thing that got increased points is going to be capturing the flag. This will now give 400 points instead of 250, and it will now take 30 seconds instead of 45. So you get more points. It'll take a little bit less time. I think a lot of the POIs that could be marked gold are the same POIs that have the flag captures. I think it's Kappa, Canyon Crossing, or I said that POI wrong. I don't know the name of it. It's the crossing one. And then Supernova Academy are usually the ones I see gold, and I believe all of those have flags as well. So that could be a little, you know, sneaky, low-key way for you to get a lot of loot, get a lot of hero points, and maybe get to A tier just as fast as some of the people landing at those boss POIs, because I wouldn't say the queen definitely takes 30 seconds to eliminate, but it'll often be close to that probably, especially if you have to worry about other players in the area. So I think those gold POIs got a massive improvement with this update. Rocket ammo, purple weapons, and gold weapons all had their drop rates decreased according to Fortnite status post. This is another change that I just really didn't notice too much while playing after the update. In the game, I got to play with the shockwave launcher before it was fully out of the game. It seemed like most players still had a full refresh of rockets on their body, and I wasn't really ever at a point where I was like overly concerned about my rockets, and I believe I was using both the shockwave launcher and the Swarm Strike rocket launcher at the same time. So I was using, you know, about as much rocket ammo as you can use, and it still wasn't really a problem for me. On most of the bodies that I was finding, I was getting a good amount of rockets. This maybe will make the Swarm Strike rocket launcher less relevant early on in the game, but I think once you get to the midpoint in the game and most people have kind of looted an area and then also eliminated and looted players who have also looted an area, at that point in time, most people I think are just going to be either full rockets or, you know, close to full rockets. Especially with the vaulting of the shockwave launcher, there's just less people using rockets on the island because the Swarm Strike isn't as spammable as the shockwave launcher was because it needs to be reloaded every shot. Just the way you use the item is very different. So I think the main time you'll notice this is just getting a Swarm Strike really early on in the game or maybe off spawn. But outside of that, I don't think this change is really too significant. Another change that I think just doesn't matter is going to be the Lead Spitter 3000 has once again got decreased recoil. So it's going to be more accurate than it previously was. But this is a weapon that I just don't ever see myself really enjoying at all, with how much it just impairs your movement when shooting. I think a decent player with something like the OXR or the hammer at medium range is almost always going to dominate the Lead Spitter, and the movement advantage that a player using a shotgun will have in close range fights, I think will also be able to easily break the camera of the player using the minigun. So just a weird weapon where I don't feel like it's the best at anything. And it's also a weapon that kind of requires you to be exposed for a long time to deal damage to enemies, and that is something that I just don't think is really going to be that good. The miniguns we've had in the past have had times where they dominated, but I think those were much better than the Lead Spitter was and didn't really impair your movement as much. And the final change we're going to talk about is going to be that the loot pool in ranked now matches the tournament settings, which I think is a very good thing. I'm not really up on what the current tournament rule set is and how this will affect ranked, but one way this will affect ranked is the medallions should still be in ranked because they left it in the tournament rule set. So if you know, really dislike the idea of Fortnite without medallions, they should still be in the ranked mode. And then there should also be several other items that are, you know, potentially not in the game in ranked. I think Fortnite should just always have ranked be off the tournament rules. It kind of is bizarre that they have pubs ranked, which also basically just has the same loot pool as pubs, and then a tournament rule set that you play in cups. You would think that ranked should match the tournament rule set. That way it's something for people to play and somewhat practice for tournaments. Like the practice will never be perfect in a ranked mode compared to actual tournaments, but I still think that having the loot pool in ranked match tournaments is something that just makes the most sense. And there's times where Fortnite has kind of dipped their toe into this or tried it. I believe they did it at the end of Chapter 5 during the Marvel season. And I don't really know why they've never just fully committed to it, like completely, ever since ranked was introduced. So hopefully this is just a change that goes forward. I think it will make ranked a lot more enjoyable to play. And also give Epic freedom to make more creative items for pubs that don't necessarily need to be balanced and competitive. I think the Wrecked season is a good example of this. If Wrecked launched and the cars just weren't in ranked, and the people that wanted to play with really overpowered cars could go play pubs, and the people who didn't want to deal with that at all could go play ranked, I think everybody would have been a lot happier in that situation. But the way that season dropped, it was overpowered cars in ranked, overpowered cars in pubs, and there was just really no escaping it. But that is going to be it for this update. I think the medallions being gone is something that's going to affect the game a lot. My matches today playing after the update felt so much slower than before the update, but I feel like that's also just a lot of people adapting to the new change are probably playing slower because they know things are different. I feel like in a few days, it'll probably be faster than it is now, but not as fast as it was when we had like the medallions and the shockwave launcher all over the place. We will be getting more mobility items during the course of the season though, as well. So right now it might not feel like there's very much mobility, but that's definitely something that will change over time. Let me know what you guys think of this change down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.